Well, blessed good morning and welcome to our morning devotion and time for peace. Today is a special devotion in that it will probably be my last devotion in terms of having daily devotions going on. I will say a little bit more about this during the course of our time together this morning. At this point in time, I would just like us to take this opportunity to give God thanks for His many blessings in our lives and to prepare ourselves for this time together. It is truly a beautiful time in this world. So we come into a place of stillness, a place of peace. We acknowledge God's wondrous gifts of peace, love, openness. We acknowledge how God has worked in our lives through the years, how God has assisted us as a people, as a family, a human family, to come to this stage where more and more our eyes are being open to truth. So oftentimes in our world, we forget. We forget why we are here. We lose our way. We become busy with a multitude of other things. We allow that which is passing away to take our full attention. We worry ourselves endlessly. Even though within the context of our faith traditions we are reminded not to be concerned, not to be worried. And we would repeat this, but at the same time we would also say God helps those who help themselves. Well, that's true too, because in reality it's all one. But the self that God helps is the self that is in alignment with God. The self that allows the divine grace to flow. The self that is not seeking its own individual, separate gratification. But the self that is open and receptive to the inner guidance, recognizing that in many ways it has no clue as to why it is here. And so it has to depend on listening to its higher self in order that it may discern why it is here. And in that discernment, it can then be of use. It can then help. It can then serve the true purpose for its existence. So we are in this space this morning, a space of openness, a space where we invite you to give thought to our journey, our purpose in this world, and how we are serving that purpose, and where we're going with it. For this devotion, I want to go back to a reading that was shared on Sunday in our liturgy. And it's a reading that has become extremely meaningful for me. It's found in the second epistle of Paul to the Corinthians. It's the 6th chapter, and it's reading for the first 13 verses. Listen with me as I share. As you work together with Christ, we urge you all also not to accept the grace of God in vain. For God says, "At an acceptable time I have listened to you, and on a day of salvation I have helped you. See, now is the acceptable time. See, now is the day of salvation. We're putting no obstacle in anyone's way, so that no fault may be found with our ministry. But as servants of God, we have commended ourselves in every way, through great endurance, in afflictions, hardships, calamities, beatings, imprisonments, riots, labors, sleepless nights, hunger, by purity, knowledge, patience, kindness, holiness of spirit, genuine love, truthful speech, and the power of God, with the weapons of righteousness for the right hand and for the left, in honor and dishonor, in ill repute and good repute. We are treated as impostors and yet are true, as unknown and yet are well known, as dying and see, we are alive, as punished and yet not killed, as sorrowful yet always rejoicing, as poor yet making many rich, as having nothing and yet possessing everything. We have spoken frankly to you, Corinthians. Our heart is wide open to you. There is no restriction in our affections, but only in yours. In return, I speak to you as children. Open wide your hearts also. I find this passage to be truly meaningful in our time. And I believe Paul really says a mouthful there in that passage, where Paul takes the human condition, the human experience, and he lifts it to another level, a higher level. He helps us to see that these things are part of the journey and they have a purpose. And their purpose is our faithfulness, our willingness to stay the course, our willingness to go through the difficulties, the challenges. We have this sense of understanding in ourselves that to have a good life in this world is for it to be free of obstacles and challenges, where there are only accomplishments. And unfortunately, even the religious movements sometimes fall into this trap and speak of the prosperity and the goodness that happens to those people who serve the Lord. They even misquote passages like, all things work for good for those who serve the Lord. Well, if you misunderstand that, then you would misunderstand the crucifixion. Or if not, then it means that there was something wrong with Jesus, because he was crucified. All things work together for good for those who serve the Lord. Paul has it right. Paul understands that in all those trials, in all those tribulations, everything was perfect. Everything was working together for good for himself and his companions, because they were in service of Almighty God. So it's paradoxical. The goodness that we are after as individuals who have come into this world, as souls that have incarnated, the goodness that we are after is the goodness of our perfection. Perfection as souls in this world, remembering the journey and remembering that we are called to be faithful in it all and not to lose sight of the goal. That is our purpose. And so Paul, in ending his passage this morning, invites us to have open hearts. What does that mean? We live in a world that there is more focus on defense than there is on openness. We are so conscious of being attacked by others that through our various challenges in life, we shut down little by little, more and more each day. We hardly ever rise from the ashes, as it were. We journey, and oftentimes we allow life's circumstances, life's challenges, to knock us off center. And we remain off center until off center becomes the new center. And we go on, thinking that we are now centered again. But we are off center from where we started. Paul, in his writing that I shared with you this morning, holds to the notion of being centered through it all and not allowing it to knock us off center. And so what does it mean to be centered? Simply to remain aligned to our soul's purpose. And our soul's purpose is in the service of Almighty God. Allowing God to experience all of this journey through us. Allowing God to use us to pour His grace into this world, to renew, to strengthen, to uplift. This is what this is all about. But we can only do this with that armor of God. And it was only in reflecting on this passage on Sunday that I realized that the armor of God is an open heart. It's the vulnerability. It's the, Peter, put up your sword. Put up your sword. Let this be as it is. That's powerful. And we don't get there by just hearing words. We get there by practice. We get there by being exposed, making ourselves vulnerable, first to ourselves, then to those around us. Knowing that the invincible nature of who we are is not about this lifetime. It is about our soul. And we know this. So have an open heart. Revisit all that has caused your heart to close. Seek out. Because we don't really seek help or assistance in our journey, especially in this Caribbean. We only seek help when things have gone wrong and we're helpless and we need desperate help. We don't understand the importance of working through things so that they don't become destructive. We don't understand the importance at times of spiritual companionship, for example. Someone to journey with us and to help us to see that which we're going through from a different perspective, to assist us in remaining centered and not being overwhelmed. Because the sense of being overwhelmed is all about our thoughts, our thinking, our perception. Another person looking at it sees it from a different place. Another person looking at it can help us to make the connections and to see that there's a pattern or there is something here that we're missing. But we tend only to shout for help when things are really bad. And sometimes by then it's very difficult to turn the ship around. An open heart. Learn to journey with another who is willing to journey with you. Open your heart. As I close this devotion this day, I close this contribution. I close this contribution that I have been offering for just about 4 years. It began in the pandemic. It began as an effort to assist persons to hold on and in being shut away to not lose hope or go into despair. I walked the grounds of Codrington College, reminding persons of what it looked like out there. I worked with persons as we developed the services for the Anglican Church during that time. And we deliberately used a drone to show the fields and the community and the villages. All because we were all locked down. And we wanted to be able to reconnect persons with the outside world so that they wouldn't become subject to despair and depression. And I continued after the pandemic's high point was over. And it has been a joy to journey with you. I must admit, I have been disappointed at times when we were not able to engage in conversations, but it is difficult. And many persons prefer just to say, hi, hello, I'm listening, I'm from this place, I'm from that place. And that's all well and good. But what would have been more helpful would be if we had courageously put ourselves there and say how we were being touched. say what we were exploring. Those things feed those of us who share our own journeys and our own thoughts. Because life is a two-way street, I always tell persons. As much as I might give, I receive. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes, I can only give what I receive. So, in the future, it'd be good to remember the importance of dropping a note to say what has touched, what has been impactful, how did you hear something, how have you heard it before, how has it helped you through the years, what have you discerned from it, not only just my discerning or that of somebody else who's presenting, but yours. This is important. It's important for you to be able to actually see what's inside you out there in type. And it's also helpful for the person who's offering, because they can wrestle with your comment and their own comment and see what God is saying to them as well. But this journey is ended, at least in this format, with this frequency. It has been truly a challenge to maintain, especially those times when I had to travel as well. But it's been a joy. And going forward, my intent is to pay more attention to the dialogue between persons, the small group, the opportunities for engagement with persons. I have spent about 40 years in ministry preaching, and it's been in many ways one direction. There have been those persons who have spoken back to you. But at this phase of my journey, as I prepare to retire from ministry in its fullness, I have a desire to be in that dialogue with persons and to journey with persons more intentionally. And so through the Contemplative Life Foundation, my intention is to work with those persons in that group and for us to engage in those kind of dialogues and book studies and meditations and offerings that would help us to all grow and become what God would have us be, and to be remembering our own centeredness. I invite persons to join the organization. It's intended to be, as what's being called in many ways, the new monastics, where individuals commit to journey together, to learn together, to hold each other accountable for the journey, to explore together, to listen together, to meditate together, to study books together. That's what this organization is about. You can find us at www.contemplativelife.net. That's www.contemplativelife.net. And it is there that I will be putting most of my focus. And there will be the occasional podcast to share a thought, but it will not be the frequency of what we have been accustomed to. I've done over 400 devotions over these years. Seems like almost 100 or so per year. They're probably more than that. And they all can be found on the Contemplative Life Foundation Facebook page and also the YouTube channel. I invite you to go back and listen again. You may hear something that you didn't hear the last time. They're all there. They won't be taken down. And you can look at one daily or as you wish, but they're there. And it's been a joy to offer them and have them available. I'll also be doing, as I have mentioned in the past, I'll also be doing some work with my organization, Higher Life. And Higher Life is really intended to provide that one-on-one engagement with persons to assist them in this journey and to help them to move from one degree to another. The intention is to be a spiritual companion, and this is where I'll place my efforts in my ministry going forward, working with individuals, exploring healing, exploring meditation, exploring their personality and how they can grow through that personality. And I encourage persons who are willing to book a session, www.higherlife.net, and let us journey together. I would look forward to that. I just remind you as I leave this morning of our Enneagram retreat, which comes up November 15th to the 17th, and to remind of the fact that we will have an early bird discount which will finish on June 30th. I look forward to persons participating in this as well. It appears that it will be a rich experience. And so with that said, I just want to once again be able to share with you and to express God's love and God's peace to you, and hope that you journey with me in the future in one of the other methodologies that I will be engaging in. I pray God's continued blessing on your life, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in one way or another. Every blessing.
Amazing grace will always be my song of praise, for it was grace that bought my liberty, and I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond my faults and saw my need, and I shall forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, to view the cross where Jesus died for me, and how marvelous that grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond my faults and saw my need. If not for grace, my soul would be a drifting ship with no safe harbor from the angry waves. But Calvary's cross shines brightest through the darkest of storms, and just in time His mercy rescued me, and I shall forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, to view the cross where Jesus died for me, and how marvelous that grace that caught my fallen soul. He looked beyond my faults. He saw me in need.